Do you remember when everyone was waiting for Red Dead Redemption 2? Or when everyone canceled Battlefield 5 because EA decided to mock history and their best franchise? Or maybe you remember that epic God of War relaunch, which was so breakthrough in terms of graphics that not a single PC at the time could actually run it. Well, that was 7 years ago. Good morning. There were a lot of projects released in 2018. It felt as if the end of the world had been announced beforehand. And in order to raise cash for the last time, developers decided to release absolutely everything they had, no matter what condition it was in. And yes, there were some bad releases this year as well. We got the shitty Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty, but still, in 2018 alone, so many great projects came out that it seems like some sort of madness now. Moreover, most of these projects were so good and had such good graphics for its time that they look better than the games that are coming out right now. And today, I would like to recall the main release of the busiest year of the gaming industry, which I think was the peak in terms of graphics and the overall quality of games. And maybe we will be able to understand why after 2018, everything only got worse. One of the first releases of that year was Far Cry 5. To be honest, I wonder how nobody cared about this game back then. Although, it would seem Far Cry has always evoked pleasant feelings among players. Ubisoft was still somehow holding on, not like now. Most people had mixed impressions about the game. The world in the game is beautiful, as per the classics, and this is one of the things Ubisoft really knows how to do. In general, it was a normal game that did not cause a wow effect, had good graphics at the time, although far from great. And in general, Far Cry 5 can be called the last good game in this series. Someone's fucking dog is barking. But it was just the beginning of the year, and very soon we were going to see some really revolutionary projects. Let's remember A Way Out. It was an amazing game to play with a friend, or partner, where you had to work together to get out of a prison. At the time, it was the best project to play with a friend. And one of the few problems with the game was just finding a friend. The game had pretty cool cinematic graphics as far as it goes, considering that it was a split-screen game, and you know, although this game finally laid out the foundation for the release of Joseph Fares' story-driven co-op projects that became the game of the year, such as It Takes Two, it's still a way out that looks much better to me than what they're doing now. After you and your friend escaped from prison, God of War was waiting for you, and it was this game that gave rise to one of the first waves of gamer bullying. Unlike now, back then, console exclusives were really exclusives. Major releases remained on consoles for a long period of time. The return of Kratos was unforgettable, as was the reaction of players to the first showing. When I played through God of War, it was one of my first games on the PlayStation 4 Slim, and I have memories of playing it when it was snowing outside and God of War was on the TV, which I'm stupid, sorry. And I still have memories playing through when it was still snowing outside and God of War was on the TV with its incredible production, brutal battles, breakthrough graphics, and beautiful 30 FPS. And this is despite the fact that I've never been a fan of this kind of setting, but God of War is not just a game. It's a deep story of a father-son relationship that hadn't completely sickened everyone at the time. This relationship made the brutal Kratos more human, and it's definitely interesting to watch. It was a truly legendary release. And when it comes to graphics, man, they squeezed every last drop out of that poor PS4. Looking at the way the game looks now, which is more than 7 years old, you realize that back then, the developers were really professional who learned how to develop games. And you can learn how to do it too. If you've played anything more complex than Candy Crush, you're basically already a programmer. And I'm not even kidding. Boot.dev is an online platform that teaches backend development like it's an RPG. You'll learn Python, SQL, Golang, Git, Linux, all the essentials with zero fluff. But the main thing is that everything here is built like a game. Quests, levels, achievements, even boss battles. Yeah, like actual boss battles. You're not just reading theory, you're writing real code from minute one. It feels like you're just playing a game, but instead of grinding for skins, you're grinding knowledge. Knowledge that leads to real money. By the way, the average salary for backend developers in the US is now over $100,000. Cha-ching! And if it's not your thing, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. Listen, content creator to viewer, I've personally tested boot.dev, and I can honestly say it actually works. Even for someone like me, who actually tried it out, who has never written a line of code ever before. So with that being said, go to boot.dev using the link in the description, and try the course for free. Also use my code RadicalCap to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Learn like a gamer, grow like a developer. And thanks boot.dev for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. And now let's move on to one of the most breakthrough graphics in games. Detroit Become Human. When this game was first released, it definitely had the most realistic and best graphics, as RDR2 was released only at the end of that year. Some people at the release of Detroit laughed at the plot, saying, "What kind of nonsense is this? How can some androids replace humans and start pumping out rights?" Well,
Are you laughing now?
anyway, this is a cool adventure that I'm still not afraid to call one of the best representatives of the interactive movie genre. The game offers an incredible number of different twists and turns, endings, and you can play through it more than once or twice. It's a pity that the only positive news from Quantic Dream in the near future is that they haven't closed yet and are still making their game, announced in the faraway 2021. Yes, it is far away. It was 4 years ago. Wake up. Also, that year, Insomniac's Spider-Man was released. Again, it was the time when PlayStation made their games really beautiful and squeezed everything out of their consoles. Despite the incredible graphics, which still look better than in modern superhero games, this adventure was remarkable because it does not tell the story of Peter Parker's formation for the 100th time. Here, he is already experienced. And one of the main conflicts of this game is the balance between ordinary life and Spider-Man's duties. The combat system in the game is incredible, and even after tens of hours, you don't get bored of fighting bandits because the battles have a frantic dynamic and many combinations. Among the disadvantages, I can personally name a small city that you fly around quickly, but what a pleasant flight. It seems to me that most players entered the game just to fly over the well-drawn New York City to the music, and I don't blame them. Insomniac's Spider-Man has become one of the most successful superhero games for a reason. For some, the first part is still a favorite, despite the release of Miles Morales and the second part. And how can we forget the release of Kingdom Come Deliverance? This game was literally fundraised from all over the world, and for a game that received a rather limited budget from Kickstarter, it looked simply incredible and on par with big AAA releases. Although, to be fair, this game was technically really unsuccessful, which is why people remembered it in a bad light in 2018. This is exactly the kind of game that was ideologically perfect, but technically poor, which is why players treated it with contempt. Only recently has the game become a classic, and for good reason. It's impossible to think of a game that developers would love so much as Kingdom Come. Due to the fact that Daniel Vavra is an old schooler gamer, his game feels like something from another world. It has its own unique approach and solutions that are not similar to other projects. Each quest can be completed in 5 different ways, and 99% of the mechanics are not just something to check off, but make sense. The unique world is smoothly combined with non-standard mechanics. Although at first glance during the prologue, the game may seem as boring as RDR2, after a few hours it opens its wings and shows that it is one of the best games ever released in the history of the gaming industry. This game also helped cement 2018 as one of the most successful years in the gaming industry. I personally advise every single one of you to play it, especially if you like the recent second part. So, let's dig into the scrap a bit, shall we? The new Assassin's Creed continued its travels through different eras, and Odyssey took us to ancient Greece. As usual, the game has been criticized for its historical inaccuracy, but for Ubisoft, this is obviously part of their brand strategy. On the positive side, all that can be said about the game is that the scenery was really amazing. No one could criticize the developers for the visuals and detailed elaboration of the huge open world. Thoughtful landscapes, the architecture of ancient Greek cities, majestic temples, and the picturesque coastline created exactly the atmosphere that the developers wanted to convey. Everything else, well, of course, it is better to keep silent about the plot. In this game, Ubisoft also began to actively insert donations literally everywhere. In short, it was a good game, but nothing more. And of course, Red Dead Redemption 2. Imagine that even after 7 years since its release, this game is still called the most beautiful in the industry and is compared to all new releases. RDR2 has gone through many porting and received a variety of ratings and reviews after its release. Some people called it the best game humanity has ever seen, while others called it the most overrated, not understanding why it was so praised. And while some of them can't be understood, because it is unlikely that anyone will be indifferent to the scale, elaborate plot, or perfectly conveyed atmosphere of those times, others who did not like it can also be understood. If you've played any Call of Duty before, then RDR2 will seem slow and maybe even boring. This main complaint about the game was that it was too immersive and realistic. Yes, this was indeed one of the complaints from some players. I can partially actually agree with this, because some chapters were indeed a little bit too slow. But that doesn't mean that they are bad. As strange as it may sound, you need to feel RDR2 to get into it. If you can't do that, just leave the game for a while and come back to it later. That's exactly what I did. Nevertheless, everyone will definitely agree that the graphics of this game were the peak for the industry, and most likely a new peak will be reached when Rockstar finally releases their next game. This is what the graphics looked like in 2018. And this is what it looks like now. Yes, there are games that can look quite realistic now, but at the same time, these games are becoming more and more difficult to launch. And at what price? In the good old days, with each new generation of consoles, the leap in graphics was very significant. But with the release of the PS5 and Xbox series, most games looked almost exactly the same as the previous generation. We have already passed the peak of technological progress. Now we live in an era of its decline. Even if sometimes the models become better and newer lighting and rendering methods are used, a new question arises. How the hell am I going to run this? We've reached a point where developers are using technological progress as an excuse to optimize the game less or to meet deadlines. And as a result, we have new games that look almost the same as the old ones, but with 10 times worse FPS. The peak of the gaming industry has already passed. We definitely used all of the potential in terms of graphics a few years ago, but the question arises, will the industry be able to make a leap again? Bingo bango. Meow meow.